Hello everyone, good morning, and welcome to episode 2 of Sipping Tea with Stacey T. I'm gonna take a couple of seconds and let people come in. Good morning, good morning. Hope everyone is doing well. Everybody's doing well this morning. Let's see here, just waiting for some people to come in. I think people are just now getting notifications. There was a little bit of a technical difficulty, but that's something that we're that we're used to. So hopefully people are now being notified that I have a live. You're looking in your circle and you're seeing the icon that says that. Hello, welcome. All right, waiting for a couple more people to come in. Hopefully everybody's doing well this morning. I know I am because it's my birthday. So excited to be able to have this on my special day and share with you my thoughts on Lost and Found. Also want to really thank everybody who decided to be a part of this journey with me so far. You've decided to sip tea with Stacey. I think that, what I've been hearing as far as feedback has been really positive. I've had a lot of people kind of watch it after they didn't know about it and during the time frame that it was happening. So, people are now hearing a little bit more about it. People watched the last video. And for those of you who didn't get a chance to watch the last video, please go to my YouTube channel. It is Sipping Tea with Stacey T, and it is located there. And you'll be able to see all of the information or the last video and some other videos. I even have some shorts. I'm kind of silly. You'll see a little bit of my personality, I think, if you go to my YouTube channel. I also do have a TikTok that I will start to add. Thank you. Thank you, Cheryl. I appreciate that. I also, like I said, I have a TikTok. I will link that to that because it's a little bit different. It's my actual full name as opposed to a sipping tea, which I might change over. Let's see how that goes. But with that, I just want to, again, thank you for being on this journey. Share the word, spread the word, let people know. Thank you, Tiffany. Appreciate it. I'm getting wiser. I won't say, well, even getting older is a blessing. So I am getting older and I pray wiser as well. So with that, let's talk about Lost and Found. So, on my last episode, I told you that there were going to be a variety of different topics that I went into. And, I even after the first one did ask people if you have specific topics that you would like for me to cover, please also reach out to me because I think that it's really great when I'm able to kind of cover things that are interesting to you, things that matter to you, subjects that matter to you. So again, let me know that as well. Lost and Found was a really interesting one. As I started to just think about this whole platform and what I wanted to do, I wanted to be really, and I hate using the word transparent because I feel like it's overused now, but I really wanted to share things that matter to me because I know that I'm not alone in this. I know that there are other people that are experiencing some of the same things that I'm experiencing. And so Lost and Found was one of those subjects that came to me based on that. But before I get into the topic, sipping tea would not be anything without sipping tea. So last week I tried a tea that for some of you, good morning, Kim. Last week I tried a tea that if you know me, you know that I was not all that excited about. Today I had my mother choose the tea, and today the tea is Twinings. I think it's Twinings though, black tea mixed berry. I don't know, y'all. We'll see. We will see. And I got a really nice, from my mommy, I got a really nice mug. Isn't it so pretty? I love it. It has it's glass, so I'm being super careful. But that's what I'll be having my tea in today. So as I steep that, I will be getting started. So again, if you have subjects that you are wanting for me to cover, I actually do have a couple of ideas that were brought to me, and I'm going to be reaching out to a couple of you that are logged in today. And you're like, oh no, what is Stacey up to? But yeah, I'll be speaking to a lot of you all because, again, some of the things that you've gone through or that you are going through sometimes people don't think that it's important, but it really can be a blessing to kind of know how you're navigating things for other people. So you'll be hearing from me. Do not be surprised, and don't pretend that you don't know me when I reach out. All right, so I have to wait for a while. It's just barely steeping, so I'm going to cover that up a little bit, let it do its thing. And if you know me, again, I said last week, I can't drink things that are super ultra hot, so I have to wait a little bit for it to cool down. I know, drink iced tea, Stacey, right? That's what you're thinking. I'll be doing that eventually too. But right now, we're just going to be waiting for this to cool down. Lost and found, when I think back to the term lost and found, and like the first time I remember thinking about it, I remember in elementary school, it would be the place where kids that forgot all their stuff, it was like in this big box, and you'd go down to the principal's office, and that's where the lost and found was. And you could go to retrieve your items. And, sometimes if you had an accident in school, they made you go to the lost and found and wear people's gym clothes. That was disgusting, right? But that was kind of what the lost and found was. Stacey, who? What do you mean? Me? Oh, you mean who am I going to be reaching out to? Be prepared. You never know. But when I was, like I said, when I was in elementary school in the lost and found, you would come and pick out and retrieve your items. But, as you go older, there's continued moments where you lose yourself and find yourself. And that's really kind of what I wanted to talk about today. And the reason why that happens is because, as the reality of it is, as things happen, people impact our lives and things impact our lives and we lose our direction. One of the things that I think about often when I think about my childhood is, when you're a kid, you really feel like you can do anything, right? For the most part, there's at least moments. Not all of us had the picture perfect childhood, but you have moments where you feel like, I can be anything, I can do anything. Your parents kind of say, you can be anything you want to be when you grow up, which stop lying to your kids, right? It's not that your kids are not fantastic and talented, but they have special gifts that they should tap into. But that's a whole nother subject. But the reality of it is, those are the things that you think about and you hold on to when you're a kid. And you have all these dreams, you ask a lot of kids, what do you want to be? I want to be a baseball player, a basketball player. I want to own a business. I want to be a firefighter. I want to be a lawyer. There are all these things that young people aspire to do. But there's a point where you lose that. Right? You lose, and what I mean by that is you lose that dreaming capability. You totally forget that it's okay to dream. I don't really know when, I'm curious when you think that happens. For those of you who are here in the chat, put that in. Is there an age that you feel that people just kind of check out and they say, you know what, I'm not going to dream. I have to be practical. I remember, wanting to be a lawyer my entire childhood. I loved it. And my mom will probably say it's because I could never stop arguing. But I loved the way the law worked. I loved, the way that you could get people to, especially on the stand, right? Obviously a lot of what I thought about the law was from the show called Perry Mason. I was and to this day, I will still watch it, by the way. But that was I love how he got people to crack on the stand, right? I loved that. But at a certain point, I navigated all the way through college, and then in college decided I don't want to do that. But up until then, it was still my focus. And I wouldn't say that I lost my focus. My focus in that shifted, which is okay. But before that happens, there's a point in time where we are dreamers. We really feel like there's just so much potential. There's so much, available. The world is open for us. There's infinite possibilities. And then that stops. So why does that stop? And I feel like there are lots of reasons why that happens. I feel like, there's obviously that we have things that are stressors in our life. We may go through some things in our lives that say, you know what, be practical, get a job that pays. And I think oftentimes that's the reason why people often get trapped into jobs as opposed to careers as well, right? There's not a career track that says just get a career and do that. It's get a job so that you can pay your bills and take care of yourself. In high school, because you're dealing with stress and comparing to others. That is I think that's a really interesting thing. And I wonder if it's because of the generation that we were in, if that's different than now, because I feel like now that comparative stuff happens so early. You see, young girls comparing themselves to how they look. And look, I was a tomboy. So in elementary school, I wasn't concerned about how I looked. If I came home with my pants ripped or stained because I was playing something, with the boys at gym, I wasn't worried about that. But I feel like now it really does happen so much younger. Back in the day, all of us were just, wearing clothes. We weren't like really thinking. I mean, I think in high school we started to, but in elementary school, there was nothing about what type of sneakers you're wearing and all this. And now it's like you wear the wrong sneakers and you can't be seen in public, right? So it's really, really different. But and I see other people are probably thinking about their responses, but like, when do you feel like you really lost that dreamer? And do you want to find it? And have you found it? Comparing now is earlier and worse. It is so bad. I am grateful. I say this a lot to people. I am grateful that I grew up in the time outside of social media, right? Being in social media and having that inform your choices and having that be, such an integral part of my growing up would have been so detrimental. So I really don't know how young people are handling it now. I really don't, know how they're managing it, because it is so easy. If you are not secure in yourself, it is very easy to lose yourself and have somebody else determine what it is you're going to be. I think that, as I think about, again, I talked a little bit about as a child in elementary school and that whole process. As you become a teenager and you start being interested in dating and things like that, I think that so much of yourself gets swept up in that as well. I feel like so much of yourself is determined about how other people see you and what you look like and can I get people's attention? And so much of that, because that is such a thing that shapes how you're moving about in the world, it changes, or it is easy for you to then lose yourself in that, because all you want to do is gain that person's attention or their affection or their interest. And so the person that you may be, and you may think, oh, I'm boring, so they're not going to be interested in me. So I have to be spicier, I have to be different, or I need to wear more makeup, or I need to wear less makeup, or I need to do this with my hair, or wear a wig or don't wear a wig. I need to have, this amount of clothing, whatever, right? You start then literally shifting yourself and morphing yourself into something that is entirely different. I told you I was a tomboy. One of my shows that I used to love watching and will still watch as, the grown-up version now is Transformers, right? Transformers literally had one appearance and then they could shift and mimic into other things by scanning what it was, and then they could morph into those things, right? That's what we become. We hear that this is what somebody wants and we shift into that. And that's from dating onto everything else. But I think those interpersonal things are really what shape whether we're lost or found, whether we lose ourselves. And so that makes me ask you all, how many of you felt like you have lost yourself more than once? So if you do feel like you've lost yourself more than once, please say yes, or me, or whatever it is you want to say in the chat. And the reason why I want to talk about that is the different ways that we lose ourselves. I've talked about two already, right? But I'm curious. It says social media is a huge influence. Your parents need to nurture self-confidence. Man, oh man, that is so true. And it's challenging because the generations that, I feel like I grew up in, onto, or up to now are very different. And it's not to say that, people that stayed in back in the day and stayed in, what do you call it? Like the general unit of what people see as family it's not that that wasn't the nuclear family. That's what I was looking for. It's not like that was picture perfect, right? There was problems in that. People just didn't know because it was keep what's happening in your house in your house. So people didn't know. Now we're in a generation where people are not living by that motto anymore. People are like, I'm not getting healed. I can't survive like this. I need to tell someone because it's hurting me, right? So I think that's a very big difference. I always want to model plus size or face model with low confidence and self-esteem and just threw it away. Girl, you better do that because you can do that. I fully and wholeheartedly believe that you can still do that. If that's what you want to do, get to it. As a matter of fact, I saw some things recently that Boston is looking for some plus size models. So if that's something that you want to do it. I mean, why not? Again, we come into a place like it's almost like a roadblock hits us and we say, oh, well, I'm too old. I'm too this. I'm too that. And even me doing this, the sipping tea, I've had my logo for years. I'm not even exact, years. And I kept sitting on it and there was reasons. And don't get me wrong, life stuff happens. There's definitely things that happen in life that impact your trajectory or your plans, right? They say if you want to see, God laugh, show him your plans. And I think that is absolutely the case. I think that, he has plans for us beyond what we can see as well, because we see this much of time and he sees eternity. But I think that we have to stop getting in our own way. We have to stop doing that. And now that I know that that's something you want to do, I'm going to hold you accountable. So we'll chat about that because I think that is something that's great. I think that's a great thing to be doing. Why not? Why not? Hello, Al. Good morning. Welcome. Exactly. See, you have people saying, yes, you can. That's exactly right. So I love it. I think that the reality of it is, and I'm fortunate because I do have some people that will continue to push me and continue to say, Stacey, yes, you can. Stacey, you're good enough. But the reality of it is we have to figure out how to put that inside of ourselves. How do we pull out that? Because you're not going to always have those cheerleaders. Those cheerleaders are fantastic. I feel like, they're necessary. You need to find good people to be in your circle, and the people that are not so good, they might need to move on. And it's not that you wish them ill will. It just might be that, everybody has a season and their season may be complete, and that's okay. Yes, surround yourself with positive people. I think that's really important. So let's talk a little bit about relationships. And by relationships, I'm going to be talking about relationships, romantic relationships, as well as friendships. So I'll start off by talking about friendships. I think, and keeping a small circle, me too. My circle is small, and I like it like that. Because again, I think people misuse the term friend. A friend is literally if you are going through, for me, okay, my definition, not anybody else's, but my definition of a friend is if I'm going through something and something happens to me, right? Like for right now, as you guys know, I got disconnected from employment. And so if I was in a specific position and I was in desperate need and I call a friend and they're like, yeah, I can't help you, or they conveniently stop picking up their phone, right? Clearly not your friend. And that doesn't mean if they don't have it, they don't have it. That's different. But I'm talking about, folks, right? If they can, maybe what you need is to talk to someone and they're not available for that. You need someone to be by your side. They're not available for that. They're only available when they need something. That is not friendship. That's called a leech. Okay. So that is not friendship. So I'm glad you brought that up. I definitely, yes, I could count my friends on my hand. You and me both. You and me both. I have a lot of people I'm friendly with, but friends is very, very different. And I think that we need to be clear about that. And I think that we need to stop taking away the shame of that. We, growing up, call everybody our friend, right? Just like we call this one auntie that's not related to us, or uncle so-and-so who's not related to us. We start, oh, this is my friend so-and-so. It's okay to say, this is my colleague. This is somebody I work with. This is someone I know from church. This is someone I know from, that's okay. We don't have to call everybody that, because it kind of cheapens what it is, to be honest with you. All right. So let's go back to how we can lose ourselves in our friendships. I think that when I remember going to college, and before college, what people would call, I was raised in kind of a bubble, right? We didn't do much. We went to church. That's really what we did. We went to church, and we went to, we went to track, or we went to, again, church, which is like rehearsal, right? Or I was in the plays at school and stuff. So it's not that I didn't do any activities, but as far as like going to people's houses and stuff, no. That was not a thing, right? When I went to college, I was like, man, I have all this freedom. Like, I can do anything that I want to do. Nobody's controlling my behavior or activity. And I, for the first time, have to say, felt entire. And this is the thing. For those of you who don't really know me, I know people think that I'm super extroverted. I'm actually really not. I'm what they call an introverted extrovert. So I can, do the whole, hey, how you doing thing, but I don't really, that's not like my normal. Like in my normal life, you'll see me, I'm really quiet, stay to myself, watch TV, like, that type of thing. Yes, sheltered. I can say that's kind of how I grew up. But yeah, I literally I don't do those things. So people think that that's who I am. I remember when my mom and my family dropped me off in college the first day, set up my room the whole bit, and then were leaving me. And I was trying to act like I was fine when they were there. I was introducing myself to people in the dorm. As soon as they left, I literally would not leave my room, did not eat. Like, I was so grateful that my mom had bought me this huge container of animal crackers, because that's what the idea of leaving my dorm to walk to the dining hall by myself was way too much for me to think about. I literally felt lost, entirely lost. And then, you start meeting people. Luckily I had a gospel class. One of my classes was a gospel choir. Thank the Lord for that, because then I started to meet some people, and I got out of my dorm room and ate for the first time. And I probably looked crazy eating that first time because I was starving. But again, you start to form like a group of people that you're surrounding with. And because I didn't feel like I had an identity prior, I started adopting behaviors of these other people, right? Because again, I didn't have a pack. I didn't really have the experience integrating with people outside of church. And again, that was even at church, not really so much every once in a while they came to my house, but going to their houses, no, that was not a thing. So I didn't really have that type of skill set, I guess you could say. So for me, it was challenging because I was trying to navigate, how is it that I, figure out who I am? Because I really don't know. Like, I had no sense of myself. I absolutely had, when I say zero self-confidence, zero. And for a lot of people, when they talk to me, that shocks them. That's a thing, by the way, that doesn't necessarily go away right away. It's one of those things that you have to continue to work on. When I went to college, I called my mom to ask for permission to go bowling with friends. I love that. Because, right, you don't know. You're like, oh, am I allowed to do? Well, I guess I am, because I can do what I want to do. But it feels so awkward because you just don't know, right? You're trying to navigate. You're trying to figure it out. And so for me, I started adopting all sorts of crazy bad behavior. I'm not going to sit here and lie. I started swearing. I was not a swearing person. Like, where in the world do you adopt this behavior? But it's because you're lost and you don't have that sense of who you are. And now all of a sudden I'm just literally attaching myself and claiming other people's behaviors as my own. And I remember I came back home one time and I cursed my mother, said, "We're doing that? That's what they taught you in that school? You're not doing that up in here." And I was like, oh, wait a minute. Like, I had to unlearn all these things because I literally did not have a sense of who I was. So I figured, you know what, let me adopt all of what they're saying is, okay, is my normal. It took me a long time to then find who I was. I think for me, and I don't know if any of you can agree with this, but the period of my 20s, which I would say for most people is a find out who you are decade, but I had a really challenging, I feel like I kept changing it to this person. I'm like, no, that's not really who I want to be. Let me try this out. And then changing it to this person. And then it was a culture shock for me. Absolutely. So it was for me like, well, who am I? Who is this person? And who do I want to be? So that was a huge transition period, or transition decade, I guess, for me. In that period of time, and prior to that, let me go back to high school. I didn't date. Like, dating was not like a thing. I think I had like a boyfriend, but I think like maybe once when I was in but maybe I was like 16 or something. I called myself having a boyfriend, and we were able to go to like the movies, and the movies was with like a gazillion other people, right? It was that type of situation. But dating was not a thing. Like, that was not something that I did. I know a lot of people are like, oh, I dated this one and that one, or I married my high school sweetheart. Like, there was none of that. Like, absolutely not. So by the time I got to college, I didn't even know about that. So when guys were interested in me, I didn't even understand how to process that, to be honest with you. I was like, what does that even look? And I remember when there was this one gentleman, they were saying, oh, Stacey, he's interested. I said, why? I honestly did not even understand the way to navigate that, right? And so I was like, okay, who do I need to be like? He only sees me, but he doesn't know my personality, and I think my personality is boring. So whose personality do I need to kind of morph into? Now, in transparency, I didn't know that I was doing that until, I'm now older and I'm able to reflect on what I was doing in those moments. But I thought that that was normal. But I kind of look at it now and recognize I was doing it because I quite honestly didn't know who it was that I was. When we don't know who we are, we build our identity off other people. 100%. 100%. Then the question becomes, who are those people? Who are those people that we are building ourselves to be like? Do they know themselves? And in college, in high school, no. Nobody. There's like a rare, like 1% of person that comes in, is super serious, knows what they want to be in life, has already committed to somebody. But like, the reality is, no. People have zero clue. We are all lost and trying to figure it out. That was me in college. And when a female was interested, I was in shock. Yeah, it is really challenging when you don't have that kind of, again, I also did not think I was attractive at all, right? So you go into a situation where people are like, oh, she's cute. And I was like, what does that even look like? Again, I wasn't worried about that when I was in middle school, high school. I was worried about, being in whatever activity I was worried about. I had family stuff going on, so I was thinking about that. I was worried about my grades because I wanted to go to college. But other than that, I didn't care what was going around or going on with who, what, when, or where. All right, so I'm going to take a brief pause because my tea is getting nice and steeped, and, let's see. Again, it's mixed berry. Y'all, I'm going to tell you right now, I don't think I'm going to like it. But let's see, I'm just stirring in some sugar because I was going to try to do it without, but then I was like, Stacey, don't play yourself. So let's test it out. Actually, it's not bad. I'm actually pleasantly surprised. I actually kind of like it. I didn't know that I was going to be honest with you. I'm going to take another quick taste. Yeah, it's not really bad. It has, I'm trying to figure out what berry it tastes like. It's like, okay, this is going to sound really weird. I guess it's strawberry-ish that I'm tasting. How many of you remember try honey, not sugar? I know. Sheesh, getting on me, Tiffany. I know. I should use, yes, or at least brown sugar, not the white sugar. I know. But what I will say is, so this is going to sound really weird, the comparison I'm about to make, but how many of you remember Strawberry Quick back in the day? Literally, and I know it's not milky, but that's literally the flavor that just, it triggered in my brain. See, you remember it. You have a whole story of my identity crisis. Woo! You should write about it. We have a writer in the room, and I think you should write about it. There's so many stories in here that need the Strawberry Quick. You remember that? That's literally what it tastes like. So if you're wanting something reminiscent of your strawberry Quick days, try this is again the one that I just had, black tea mixed berry. I think that a lot of, and going back, you still drink the chocolate quick. I didn't even know that. Oh wow, really? You didn't need to do that, Al. Strawberry quick was bomb. Like, stop. Don't do that. Don't do that. And you still drink the chocolate one? Yes. I don't know. Did I know that they had a chocolate one? I think I might have known that. I don't know if I ever had the chocolate one though. For some reason, we wanted strawberry all the time. And Al, you should drink it. I'm gonna send you some strawberry quick. You can drink that. But I think, going back to, what we're talking about as far as having an identity crisis and not really knowing who we are, it is really, really easy for, especially when we start dating and we really want somebody to like us, it's really easy to lose ourselves. I think that one of the things that I want you all to really think about is, who is it that you have been in a relationship throughout and I'm talking about your friendships right now. And in all of your friendships, who have you been in that? And what I mean by that is, are you the friend that is always the giver? Are you the friend who is the person that people confide in? Are you the friend that's, like, okay, who's messing with you? Let me get ready and let's go handle business. Or who are you? Who are you? And that's not to say that, that what you're doing or who you are is wrong or right or anything indifferent. I think it's important for us to remember who we are. If we know who we are and we are comfortable with that, we also need to think about what we're missing in those friendships. A lot of times we, and we have a variety of friends. You're all the above. You're the giver. Yes, you are the giver. And yeah, Al, you are all the above. You're all the above. I think that it's important to also think about what we're not getting in relationships, in friendships. There's lots of things where you can talk about giving and giving and giving, but being a giver is really difficult. And as a giver, I can fully say that it is very, very, very challenging, because you want to give, but there's a point where you like, I can't, there's nothing else. Like, the tank is empty. There's nothing in the reserves. There's not even fumes, right? I don't even have that. So how do I navigate? How do I move forward with nothing in the tank? If you have no friends in your friend circle that are also givers, you're going to be tapped out and quickly. Because there's not supposed to be just one of each in the friend circle. If you have true friends, right? And again, this goes back to that definition. They should be, fueling you. When you are empty, when you're on E, right? And there's like nothing left, you can't even get to the gas station before you get that re-up. That's where you're supposed to be able to get into that friend circle. And if you're not doing that, if you're constantly giving, you are lost. Right? Because you're not being yourself. You're going to start building resentment. You're going to start being angry. You're going to start avoiding those people. So again, really important to think about that. Like, who are you? Who do you become in those moments? Givers also need the cup filled. That is for sure. That is for sure. It's taxing because a lot of the people you give to don't have the capacity to pour back into you. Ooh, man, that's really deep and true. But I will say this, there's a difference between when you are giving to someone who's not your friend, right? If you're giving to someone who is in need, they need your energy, they need your prayer, they need your hope, they need the peace that you have, whatever, right? They need that. That's different. You've signed up to give that, and you're not looking or needing to be replenished, because God will replenish you in those times. But I'm talking about when you are adopting friendships, right? In those moments, there's going to be some times where your friends are down and they just don't have it to give, and you're going to be the uplifter of their head, so to speak, in that moment. But they at some point should be able to do the same thing for you, right? It shouldn't be always lopsided. And if it's always lopsided, it is really easy to care about someone and then to say, you know what, I care about you, but be blessed. Like, I care about you, God bless you, I wish you well, but I can't adopt that weight. I pray over my daughter's godparents because they bless us so much. That's awesome. That is such an awesome thing. You know, it is really important to have those people in your life, because without it, it becomes a drain on you. And again, you lose yourself. You can literally lose yourself in being a giver, right? You're just giving. Well, I'm just a giver. God blesses me to be a giver. And that is true, but he also blesses you with wisdom. Because there's a difference between giving to somebody who's grateful or in need in a moment, and there's a difference between giving to a vampire that will suck you dry, right? Or they're an emotional drain. Every single time you talk to them, they are draining and like sucking every amount of happiness and joy and emotion and patience and all that. Like, they're just constantly like, just come on. Yes, be a wise giver. That's why we need to pray for wisdom. It's important that we pray for wisdom, because without it, and discernment, right? And discernment is just literally, okay, God, give me the understanding of who I need to be, you know, giving into, and who I just need to say, God, this is above my pay grade. Give that person to you. And you can handle that, because I know you can handle all things, right? There's a difference between those two things. And we have to be smart enough to say, okay, I've done my part. I feel like I've done what was given for me to do, and now I'm going to take a step back. And taking a step back doesn't mean that you don't care about the person. It doesn't mean that that you're not going to help in some capacity at some point. It just means that you've learned that that is not for you to do. Now, how do you find yourself in a moment like that? That for me has been challenging. Because again, I am a giver. I mean, and again, I am fortunate that I do have other givers in my circle, but there are some times that as a giver, I don't ask for help, right? And that is a huge issue. Like, I will wear myself out, run myself dry, cry privately, and keep it trucking, right? So that, unfortunately, sometimes you have to, learn that even in your giving, sometimes God has told you to sit your butt down and you didn't do it, right? You just were like, oh, I'm fine, I can keep doing this. And he's like, I didn't ask you, right? I didn't ask for your help. I didn't ask you to do it. I want you to sit down. And so sometimes I feel like a lot of the reasons why we get lost in, being a giver is because we haven't found that we need to give that to God. And I think that's a really, really important thing. And that's something that I've been learning, but it is still, in full honesty, it is still a hardship for me. That is still something that I'm working on, because I want to make sure other people are good. And guess what? I need to make sure that I'm good too. Like, that's important. All right. So that's in, yes, be a wise giver. I think the other thing that I want to talk about as far as relationships goes are, the romantic relationships. In romantic relationships, I think, there's a lot that is challenging, right? First of all, you're two different people, two different personalities, typically, right? Two different, maybe, interests. You may have some similarities in your interests as far as, what you want to do. Now, if you're married, obviously you should have a unified purpose together. You can have separate purposes as well, but you should have a unified purpose. But the reality of it is challenging. It is challenging to put two people together that are literally different, have different everything, and then unify. And that is why I feel like, it is so challenging to have relationships. Romantic relationships be successful is a challenge. I will say this. I remember when I was back in the day, I was on like every dating app. I was like, I'm gonna find me a man. So I was on every dating app known to man. And what I was doing was not smart, Because what I was doing is I was literally spelling out, I was like, you know what? Okay, I want the man to know exactly what I want from him and what I want him to be like. So me thinking it was smart, I wrote every single thing that I like. I wrote every single thing that I thought, I wanted him to be and be like, and I want a God-fearing man and he has to be this and that. And so I was doing all those things. But the problem is basically I was giving him intel and he could fake the funk and pretend that that's who he was. Right? So I didn't realize that me being, giving a full profile, which is what I found myself doing. I was like, okay, that's what I'm going to do. Yes, they will pretend to be. I always tell people, you have to be careful because people will send a representative to meet you. But then that representative at some point goes away and you find out who the real person is and you're like, ooh, I don't like that person at all. They should have, can I speak to that representative again? Because this person, that is not me. I do not have any interest in this person. So I see Al, you've been there. I see that. Listen. The reality of it is what I found in having conversation with these people. You send them a message or two, and then some of them actually I was like, okay, I'll speak to them on the phone. A lot of people could say a lot of stuff, right? And if you're not found within yourself, if you don't know yourself, it is so easy to get caught up in the emotion of feeling chosen, right? It is so easy to, oh, he chose me. He wants to be with me. He thinks I'm pretty. He thinks I'm interesting. He thinks this. He thinks that. All those things are great, fantastic, sweet, wonderful. However, you should already think that you're pretty and fantastic and wonderful without somebody telling you those things. Because then, them telling you those things is nice, but it's not what you're looking for. You're not looking for validation because you're not lost. You've already found out who you are. You know what you want. You know what you're wanting to do, and you know what you're not willing to do. And I think oftentimes people don't know that piece, because people are such in the space of wanting to be in a relationship. And I get it. If you look into the biblical aspect, it says it's not good that man be alone, right? So I get it. I think relationships are super important. I think romance is super important and all the things. And we'll talk about that that's a different topic altogether. But I think that it's also really important that we're thoughtful about who we are before we're adding somebody to the equation. It's simple math, right? 1 plus 0 does not equal 2, right? If I'm 0 because I'm not found, so which means I don't know what I am, I don't know my value, then I can't add somebody to it and expect us to be 2, right? 1 plus 0 that's not the equation that you want. So you really need to, and that was good because I'm not a math person, but that one just came to me. I think that it's important that we're recognizing what our value is. Are you found? Do you know what your value is? Actions do speak a lot louder than words. But this is the thing. We need both. And the reason why I say that is because, a lot of people can be very action oriented. Like I know a lot of friends of mine that would have, relationships that would say, the guy would work. And that's action, right? That's showing love, but never tell the woman that she was loved, right? You need both of those things because telling is a verb, which means it's also an action, right? So talking, communicating, those are verbs, which means they're also actions. I want you to show it, right? I want you to show it, and I also want you to declare it. So I think that those are both important things. So in my younger years, I was looking for validation in who I was dating because I didn't know who I was. That's normal. I think that's really normal. I definitely was. I had no idea who I was. I didn't know that, people would be interested in dating me. I didn't know any of those things, right? I think that that's a very normal thing for many young people because we're awkward. We're trying to figure out who we are. But now, even in 20s and 30s, and I'm in my 40s going towards the 50. I'm not in my 50s, but going towards that portion, it's challenging, the reality of it is knowing who you are is so crucial. It is crucial. It's paramount for you to be in any relationship, especially when you're trying to add someone to your life. So, and your friends, they're, already in your life, they're in your circle. But if I'm, in a romantic relationship, dating someone, or someone is courting me and towards marriage, I need to know who I am first. How will I add somebody and, not know, okay, the things that trigger me or the things that bring me joy, or how to find joy within myself? A lot of people enter relationships thinking that this person is going to make you happy. You need to be happy for yourself, because if they go through a miserable period, let me tell you, misery indeed does love company, and they will drag you down if you don't have your own semblance and understanding of joy. So it is important to make sure that you have your own happiness, have your own peace, know who you are. Make sure that you're not just ending up in, this space where any wind can blow you this way or that way. And I think that goes into for me, my most important relationship is my relationship with God. And there have been so many times in that relationship that I was lost. I was lost when, things that I didn't expect to happened. Between, having housing issues growing up and going into, both my father and my brother died within years of each other. There's been so many, my first big heartbreak, all of those things. It really was like, okay, God, where are you in the midst of all this? I felt so lost. I felt so disoriented. And even knowing, is God real, right? I had to go through all of those emotions and being upset and being hurt and feeling cast aside and feeling like, nobody understood what I was going through. Those things, by the way, are not true, because there's always somebody who knows what you're going through. But in the moment, it feels so much like you're just kind of spiraling, like you're in that whirlwind all alone and nobody can capture you. So it's so important for me to then figure out how to really go to God and say, okay, I'm literally lost in this. And it's not even, oftentimes people think about it as, I no longer have a relationship with God. I'm not even talking about that. And if you don't, then you should get one, because it's the only way we're going to make it through. But I'm not even talking about that. I'm more so talking about even believing, feeling lost. There are moments where you are going to have to hold on with your fingernails to what you know is God, and have Him work on all the other stuff in the midst of, as what you're going through, to make sure that you can then be found again. So I'm curious, how many of you have felt in adult relationships that you have had a hard time navigating because you lose yourself? I think it's, again, normal, because you just want to make the other person happy, right? You want to make the person happy. You want to make sure that they feel cared about and nurtured and all those things. How many of you feel that, in those adult relationships, that you have lost yourself, and then it's almost like you have a moment and then you realize, oh my gosh, I'm not even worried. And for me, I will tell you one relationship that I was in, I think it ended in 2016. I literally thought, I thought this person was my husband, blah, 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 blah. I was so focused, solely focused on this person. So I couldn't and looking back on it, I was like, man, I gave all energy. It was all consuming. Everything about, oh, what does he need? When does he need it? Is he okay? Let me call. And it wasn't let me be clear. I've always had other stuff going on. So I'm not that stalkerish person that calls 16,000 times a day. It's not that. But I literally had so much, everything was wrapped up in what this person was, and feeling chosen. Like I told you, that I think in itself can be something you have to be aware of. There's, for so many of us, I don't know about men because I'm not a man, but for women, there's this, and I think maybe it goes back to fairy tales, this idea of not necessarily living happily ever after, but being chosen by the prince, right? Having some man say, you're the person, right, for me. And there's a beauty in that. So don't get me wrong. And if you're still waiting for that, continue to do that. But what I'm saying is you shouldn't get so wrapped up in it that you forget who you are, right? Because you are already a prize. You are already a queen. You are already worthy. You are already enough. All those things already are true. But the reality of it is we get so consumed with somebody else saying it to us that we sometimes forget, that those things are already true, that we already own them, that they're already ours to claim. And so I think that it's really important that we are mindful. And as you see other people, your friends navigating relationships, first of all, give them a little bit of grace, right? Because it can be challenging. I think we've all had that friend that gets into a new relationship and then forgets we exist. Right? You're like, dag, I guess we're not hanging out. I guess that they totally, because they're consumed with that initial joy and that happiness of being in the relationship and everything is sunshine and lollipops. So that's fine and that's normal. But I think we've all been there. I think what we need to understand is, when that person is there, be there in that space, but also give them grace to navigate. No glass slippery. Glass slippers, man, I don't know if those are comfortable, to be honest with you, right? We're waiting for a glass slipper, and those glass slippers look like they would give you bunions and corn, so I don't know if that's really something you want to aim for. The reality of it is I think that it's so important for us to consider what we're doing in relationships, how we're navigating them, and are we found? Have we found ourselves? Are you content in who you are right now? And as you navigate relationships, as you're, for those of you who are in the space of wanting to have that person, that life partner, do they know who they are? Are they on a journey to figure out who they are? Do they accept you as you are? If you were not to change at all, would they accept you as you are in this current moment, at this current time? Can you say the same for them? If they change not at all, and I'm not talking about like weight or, those things, which for some of you that may be ultra important as well. But I'm talking about if they did not change their personality, the way they spent money, the way they saved money, the way that they talk to you, the way that they treat you, the way that they show up for people, the way that they treat their family and engage with their family, how they are with their friends, how they are when you go out to eat. Do they go out to eat? Do they like to shop? Do they not shop? Do they gamble? Do you not like that? Like all of those things, if they did not change at all, are you good with them? And it's not to say they're not going to change, because the reality of it is we have to give grace for people to change. Change is a constant, right? Even though how people change is not constant, you know that there's going to be change. That is going to happen. It is a thing. It is a very real thing. So are you okay, however, if they don't change in a way that you were thinking they would change? Are you okay if they do change? I've had people say, oh my gosh, I think that man was so fine. He had a 6-pack, and that 6-pack will not last. Like the reality of that is not common. Okay, so if you're expecting for there to be, this person that constantly stays with a 6-pack and all that, good luck to you. And I'm not saying, hey, if they do, God bless them. But what I'm saying is you need to be really looking at who they are. Do they know who they are? Have they found themselves? Because two found people, right? If you found yourself and they found themselves, getting together is still challenging. But if they have no idea who they are, if they're still fumbling and bumbling around, and then you're kind of more sure of yourself, you can give them grace, because if that's who you're, if you feel like that's your person, if you feel like that's, whatever, then that's different. But if you're just dating and this person is mean to you, or if they're not consistent, or, any of those things, people talk about red flags. I don't know what color of flags you want them to be, but you need to be paying attention. Is the person found? And it doesn't mean the person's mean. It doesn't mean the person's meant to be hurtful or any of those things. It means they're on their journey to finding them. Are you willing to be on that journey? right? So those are the things that you need to be thinking about. In the Bible, for those of you who don't know, I'm Christian, so you're going to hear lots of God references, Jesus references, Bible references. There's one thing it says, I once was lost, but now I'm found, blind, but now I see. And, and it's called Amazing Grace. So, can you give grace to that person? Because we've all needed grace. Every single one of us has needed grace. I constantly need grace, right? And I'm not just talking about from God, I'm talking about from people, my friends. Sometimes I'm wanting to show up, but I just don't have it in me, or I'm tired. And, those are the people that have shown up for me, and I always feel badly about that. Those people, because they care about me and they know what my heart is, they give me grace. But the reality of it is you have to also use wisdom. Should you be giving grace and grace and grace and grace? Because at a certain point, that's not necessarily grace. That might mean you need to be thinking about the nature of what's happening, the nature of your friendship, the nature of your relationship. You need to be thinking about those things, because, the most important thing that you can be doing for yourself is being honest with yourself. And again, if you're having a hard time with that, God can help you navigate that as well. All right. Wow, I didn't realize the time was already this late. I just looked over and I'm seeing what time it is. So we're at the end of episode 2, Lost and Found. I hope that you enjoyed it. Next week will be... I see somebody just came in as I'm just about to end. I'm glad you made it in before the ending. So again, I'm glad that you joined you saw the Lost and Found. If you're hearing a doorbell, I'm doing this at home, so just bear with me, people. It's a work in progress. So the reality of it is next week will be at a later time, but I'm really excited to be able to come to you again with more content. I thank you so much for being with me. Yes, perfect time, because you're better late than never, and I appreciate you for being here. I'm hoping that you all are enjoying sipping tea with me. We'll be back at a later time next week, because again, it's my birthday, so I want to spend my birthday time, doing birthday things. So thank you so much. Hope that you're all well. And as I said in the last one, and I will continue to say at the end of every single sipping tea, be kind to yourself, be kind to others, and extend to yourself and to me a measure of grace. Have a great one, everyone. Bye. Thank you. Bye. God bless.